Okay, so if I just, then I have to, okay.
Oh, you have to point it here.
Oh, here.
This
Okay.
is the control.
Well, I know. Okay.
It's not going to work like that, though. You have to.
I'm going to push this and then push it down.
Okay.
20 seconds. It's limited.
Sure.
So, is it okay to start now? Okay.
Please.
Okay. There are many countries in this world. That means that there are many different people of different races and different ways of living. So when a person goes to a different country for the first time, they would usually experience cultural differences, or something you would call a culture shock. And I'm sure most of you have had this experience, because I have. And this is a photo of me when I first moved to the United States. I was small, I was 5, I was very Japanese. But even as a kindergartner, I was surprised to see all the many differences between the United States and Japan. So today, I'd like to share with everyone the experiences I had with cultural differences. My first shock came with language. On the first day of school, my father gave me a piece of paper with 2 phrases, hello and may I go to the restroom. These are my very first English phrases. And these phrases were the first for the beginning of getting over my first and biggest shock, that Japanese was useless. And it didn't take time for my second shock to come. It was at snack time. I was served grapes, so I ate them. But they weren't grapes, they were olives. And there was no such food as olives in a 5-year-old Japanese girl's vocabulary list, and I would have never imagined that such things would be served for snacks. But it wasn't just olives. Ice cream was the same for me. It just didn't taste the same. Can you imagine how devastated a 5-year-old girl would be when she had something that she'd always loved but didn't taste as she thought? So these are the moments when I realized that eating habits and preferred tastes were something completely different. And even looking across the school was another difference. This is a photo of my 2nd grade class. As you can see, it is multicultural, unlike Japan, where everyone is Japanese. Everyone had different hair color, eye color, skin color. And I was very surprised to see how many different people lived in the United States. And how things were celebrated was another difference. For example, on your birthday, you would think that you'd be giving something, but what children in the United States would do is that they would bring cupcakes for the whole class to celebrate his or her own birthday. Don't you think this is awkward? But this is how things work. So, how did I get over all these surprises at such a young age? The answer is simple: experience. The younger you are, the faster and easier you gain new knowledge. See, you see me happily eating ice cream, something I hated. So all the differences just became a normal thing in my life, and I became an American in no time. But then, it wasn't only once that I experienced cultural differences. I also went through something called a reverse culture shock when I returned to Japan when I was 15, and this had a bigger impact on me. Well, first was everything in the young Japanese culture. From music, anime, abbreviated words, fashion, everything. And this is a photo of me when I first returned to Japan. For those who know, there is nothing connected to me to a typical Japanese high school girl. And I can tell you, I bought a lot of clothes. And well, going to school was a time where I experienced many cultural differences. And one was the train. I was surprised to see how organized they were, but surprised to see how packed the stations and trains were with people, which showed the importance of public transportation in Japan, whereas cars are the main resource of transportation in the United States. And since it took me 2 hours to go to school, sometimes I had to go to the bathroom. But the first time I walked into these bathrooms, I jumped out because I don't know how to use it. Well, since I completely adopted the westernized way of living, I had completely forgotten that such things existed. So I still remember this incident very clearly because I had to go but couldn't go, which was very stressful for me. And when school started, I was surprised to see how the classes proceeded. It was just sitting in our individual desks, listening to the teacher talking on and on for hours. But since I grew up in an environment where teamwork and interaction was a must, I was really surprised to see how the Japanese education system differs so much from the American style. And when I talk about school, I can never forget about club activities. I was in the tennis club, a very hierarchical environment, where I had to obey whatever the older members told me to do. But in the United States, age doesn't matter. We're all good buddies. And this is something that I did and still do not like about the Japanese culture. And of course, we can never forget about food when talking about differences. Yes, Japanese food is good, but the portions are small, they're often overpriced, they're too highly decorated, and too sensitive taste. So for a person like me who grew up in the United States, something was missing. I just needed more. So even the fast food restaurants had smaller portions. For example, like Moss Burger, which is a Japanese fast food restaurant. And most of all, no free refills. You may think I'm a cheap person, but Japan is such a cheapo country. That is still is my impression of Japan. So how did I come over my reverse culture shock? The answer is the same, experience. But this time, relationship was another big factor because it was harder for me to automatically adapt to the environment. Family and friends helped me. But see me looking very happy, very Japanese. And also, just recently, I experienced a culture shock in Japan. And that was at the Sento, a Japanese public bath. And at the Sento, there's an attendant watching over the dressing rooms for some reason, and it's usually an old man. But the first time I went, I was not comfortable changing in front of the old man. But this was the tradition. But I'm getting used to it, but I'm not quite there yet. So cultural differences can be seen in many different ways, from obvious language barriers to tradition, education, habits, and so on. And what an individual considers as a cultural difference may differ depending on the age or the background of that person. But I'm sure everyone has the capability to learn and accept the cultures just through experience. Because we can't wait for the culture to adapt to us. Because the world is wide. And if you go abroad, you are considered as different. You always have to remember that your culture is not the basic culture of the world. And experience is what makes us learn to understand the differences. And I believe that experience is the only solution to overcoming culture shocks. There's no need to adopt, but by adapting through experience, it will be a great way to respect other cultures. Thank you.
Questions?
I'm thinking about my question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, what part of Japan did you go back to? Where were you in Japan?
I was born in Osaka.
Uh-huh.
I came here and I went back to Osaka, where I was born, yes.
So, Osaka City. In Osaka.
Not Osaka City. It's called Kawachi Nagano City, which is the southern part of Osaka. Yeah.
So, kind of suburban.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Which was the most difficult part of your life? Like when you came here first or when you went back to Japan?
When I went back. Because when I came here, I was 5, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So it was like, I just went into the American environment, I just got in and got used to it. But I was 15 when I went back to Japan,
Yeah.
so it was much harder for me to like understand all the cultures because I grew up thinking that the American culture is the basic of the world.
Language-wise, were you comfortable with the Japanese language?
Firstly, I was not, to tell you the truth. My Japanese was like an American-speaking Japanese. But then over the years, yes, I grew to be able to speak Japanese just as well.
Do you speak them both fluently?
Yes, I think. Hopefully. Yes. Yeah.
I hope so. You also bilingual? I hope so.
Okay, which part was most hardest part when you come back to Japan? About education or food or? Lifestyle?
Lifestyle, I
Lifestyle?
would say, because education, well, I had classmates all around
Yeah.
me, which helped me, and food, well, I actually like any food, so it was fine. But lifestyle, just walking around this, like the city or anything, if I do something strange,
Yes.
everyone will look at me. But I would think that it was a normal thing because
Yes.
I was doing it in the United States. Like, for example, just walking around in a cami.
Yes.
I was doing that in America, but if I do that in Japan, everyone will stare at me. Yeah.
You know what?
In like a cami, like a tank top.
Ah,
Yeah.
like a tank top.
Yeah.
So no tank tops in Japan?
Well, yes, but the really skinny girls.
That is weird because
Yeah.
the Japanese who enjoy animation,
Yeah.
they sometimes wear the costume, the character of the
Yeah.
animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they can commit because tank top is not
Startup is right now is popular
popular now.
in Japan
Yeah.
right now.
Well, yeah. That's a little different, actually. The people with the anime and stuff like that. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the ice cream. I didn't understand why it was different here. So
Oh.
you have different types of ice cream?
No, it just didn't taste as I thought.
Oh,
Because I had an image that ice cream was this taste, as I think
Oh.
everyone has that. And that was the taste for me in Japan. And then when I came here, the first time I ate ice cream here, it tasted completely different. And so I just had one bite and I left it. And, well, now I can eat anything, but it was just, I don't exactly remember what part of the taste was different, but it just didn't taste the same to me.
But that
American
happened to
ice-
me with milk.
Oh yeah, milk
I
is
drank
different.
milk
yes.
here and I thought, "Weird, what is this?"
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to get used to.
Yes.
Yeah?
Me too.
So maybe the dairy products are a little different, yeah.
Well, you're used to full fat milks, right?
Korea?
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, I still can't drink like no non-fat milk or what
White water.
that's water.
Yeah, white
Yes.
water. Then
I think the thing about ice cream, I think American ice cream is sweeter.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I
And the
think so.
flavors are,
Yeah,
compared to Asian ice cream,
Mhm.
the flavors are too strong.
strong maybe, yeah. I like it now.
Yeah, oh, you do?
Yeah.
I like Asian ice cream. It's more delicate.
Oh, yeah.
So when you came back to Japan,
Yeah.
you couldn't speak Japanese.
Yes, I could. I could speak Japanese because I went to a Japanese school every week on Saturdays. So I could speak Japanese, but
so
not...
you can communicate with
Yeah, I
your
can communicate.
classmates.
It's just that my accent was weird and my vocabulary was very, very little. I could not write much kanji. Yeah.
But you could write.
I could write, yes, but not like a typical high school person.
Ooh, I bet that was hard.
Yeah. So, well,
What-
I actually...
What language did you communicate with your family when you were in
Oh, Japanese, but with my siblings, sometimes English. Yeah. Because it just was easier.
you can write both of them, katakana and hiragana, both of them.
I can, but the thing is, when I first went back, I had trouble with katakana. And, some look really similar, so.
Would you try to do the same experience in a different language, a different culture?
From now, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I actually am very interested in learning Spanish, and I'm starting to learn it myself right now. So if I have the opportunity to, maybe I'd like to go to Spain and study there someday.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
After your experience,
Yeah,
if and when you have children,
yeah.
will you do something similar with them like this, or would you not do this?
I would love to do this.
Um,
Yes, because
So you think it was a good experience
Yes,
in
it
your life?
is. Especially, I think being bilingual in Japan is a very, very big advantage. Especially when I'm finding a job. When I went on job hunting, just because I could speak English, a lot of people were interested in me. Yes, so it's a very big advantage, and I think it's going to be more like that on from now on. So I think it'd be a really benefit for them.
Well, we started a topic of etiquette today,
Mm-hmm.
and the words that were on the board were things like blunder and faux pas and things like that. So when you said you went back to Japan, it sounded like you were talking about you might have made some mistakes, some social mistakes,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't understand, it wasn't familiar with the culture. And it's kind of strange to feel like you're in your home country.
Yeah.
But, you know, guys, just, we got time. I took my family. My family lived in Latin America when my kids were really little. Then we lived in Korea, and then we lived in Germany. So Lucas left the United States when he was 3, and Connor was 4.5. And then didn't come back for 8 years, 7 or 8 years. 8 years? Yeah. And coming home was the hardest of all those places for all of us. Me and Kate and the kids, everybody coming home. Because, see if you agree with this, in our minds, we thought we're going home. But home was different than we remembered it because we had had all these experiences abroad. So it was the most difficult. I remember I can't remember who I told this to. We came back to Corvallis, Oregon. And it's not a city, okay? It's a big university with a small town around it. And I remember driving through town thinking, people really live in these houses? These houses look like you could, and they'd all go away, you know? Because in Germany and Korea, things are built solid, you know? And these houses just look like, oh man, I don't know if I can live in these houses. Just simple things like that. You know? Yeah, it was difficult. Reverse culture shock was the most difficult for all. Because you think it's home. It should be home. But you've changed.
Well, in my case, I think home was America for me at that point.
In your case,
yes,
that's true.
Yeah, so.
Well, and for my kids by that time, Germany was home.
Yeah,
And here was.
really different. Yeah.
But they both have the same feeling that you, both of my sons, have the same feeling you do. It's like, oh yeah, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
They're glad for the experience. Even though it was hard. It was difficult.
Okay, so cameraman has
Yes.
one question. This is really just to confirm. So when you returned to Japan when you were 15 years old, you looked like you went to a school where the vast majority of students were Japanese. But was that a Japanese public or private school, or was it an international school?
It was actually an international school, but it wasn't a place where we learned everything in English or anything. It just they have special programs for kids like me who did not speak Japanese very well, so they had a different class to teach us. But it's practically the same as a regular public school. So yeah.
And are you happy in that decision that your parents made to send you to an international school instead of a Japanese public school?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I wouldn't have been able to survive if I went to a public school. Yeah.
So one thing that happens to me is
Yeah.
that when I go back home, people tell me I look American, or I've changed. I'm more like an American. People here tell me that, oh, you look very European. So sometimes I feel like I don't belong here or there.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that feeling?
Yeah, that's really true. If I go to Japan, well, actually, if I go to Japan, everybody tells me I look American, and if I come here, they say I look American, so I guess I look American.
Oh,
Okay. So I guess I'm not Japanese.
but how do you feel?
How I feel? Well, I don't feel like I don't belong or anything. I just think, okay, I'm American, who cares? I'm American in Japan. I'm doing just fine. I don't feel like I'm out of the circle or anything, yeah.
Those years, 5 until 15, are really important years.
Yeah.
Also, when you compared the education
Yeah.
between Japan and the US, what you said about the US, the more teamwork, and
Yes.
so the classes are not like Like in the Japanese class, you have a teacher explaining?
In the schools in Japan, we have our individual desks, and we just sit there and listen to the teacher just teach.
Yeah, this is similar to Saudi Arabia, so
Yeah.
I cannot imagine something else. What is the American?
Oh, the American
teaching?
way is we're usually, well, we have our individual desks, of course,
Yeah.
but we're usually put in groups or I don't know, teams and stuff like that, and we have a lot of presentations, even from elementary school.
Oh.
And we work together to make up a project or some, for example, or even just individually have presentations and stuff like that. So in America, we really have to interact with each other in order to get good grades, in other words. But in Japan, it's really individual. You just, if you do your work, you get good grades. Yeah. So,
And lots of testing
Yeah.
based on skills.
exactly. But I think here it's more they evaluate you more on like teamwork, more social skills and stuff like that too.
There's a pretty famous
Yeah.
psychologist from Sapporo, Hokkaido, who has studied and compared the education systems of Japan and the United States. And, you know, we've talked about collectivism. So actually it's kind of the reverse of what we've talked about, because there's a lot of collective behavior in the school system here, in terms of, not the whole school, but in terms of group work and projects. In basically a summary of his work is that the school systems in America, the primary goal, if you analyze it, they don't even realize they're doing this maybe, but if you analyze it, the primary goal is to teach critical thinking. And the primary goal of Japanese education is to develop skills that you can do well on exams. And that's what his, so that's why Asians outscore Americans way off the chart in mathematics and factual things. But the American students are very comfortable with questioning and critical thinking, and with questioning their teacher, whereas that would not happen in Japan. Right? Yeah. So it's a more of a discovery learning kind of approach here, but not very strong on skills. Mathematics is, yeah, we learn it, but not anything like you do in Japan. When I went to college, I took algebra. That was my first math class.
So do you think this affects the stress from less? Is it less here in America? People.
The stress?
Yeah, because it doesn't. It's not what does you. There are other things.
Yeah, I think the Japanese education system and everything is much more stressful because there's like, as he was saying, we study skills to get good grades on exams because those grades are what affects us on going on to a different school, like to going to college. Or we take tests to go just, like there's a test that we have to take in order to go to college. And if we don't do good on that test, we won't be able to go to that college.
Yeah.
So it's just like one time, one exam. If you don't do good, you're out of school. But here, well, we have SATs and stuff like that. But grades, it's not just about that, I don't think. So I think it's much more stressful there. Yeah, in Japan.
Yeah, people, in fact, this psychologist and other people have told me that the two countries are the opposite. We play all the way through high school and we get to college and you have to work hard now. And in Japan, you work really hard, you get to college.
And we play.
Don't worry about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice visual.